Welcome back. It's the Flow Friday Sports Show on Flow FM, and we turn our attention now to the River Murray Netball Association, where it's grand final day tomorrow. Pat Brown is on the line with me. How are you going, Pat? Excited, I'm sure?
Yes, very much so, Dan. I'm good, and I hope you are as well.
I'm going well. I'm eager to hear about last weekend's prelim before we talk up the grand final, because there's been a boil over. The Imperials top all season and they're out in straight sets. The Mallee Storm were the only team to beat them up until the finals, and they beat them every time they played. But the Southern Suns have pulled off the big upset despite some injuries for the Imperials. Suns 57 to Imps 40. So they're out, and it's going to be a Suns Storm grand final. We'll talk about that in a sec, but tell us about this prelim.
Yeah, look, it was a very unexpected game because round one, Imperials beat the Suns by 14-odd goals, and in round 10 they beat them by about 8 goals. So the Suns have never got in front of Imperials this season. But the game was a relatively good game, competitive game up until about half-time. Both teams had to settle their passings. There were some really long passes into the goal circles that went astray, but it appears that the Suns settled better than what the Imps did. After half-time, it was definitely a Suns-controlled game. Imps tried a lot of changes. Coach Carrie Daniels changed the girls around a fair bit, rested some players, tried to come up with the right answers, but couldn't. It was a runaway win for the Suns after going down to Imps for 2 of the season games. I don't know whether I think Imps had quite got over the semi-final against the Storm. There were a few bodies that went here and there, and I watched it very closely because we sort of questioned how rough the first game had got. But there was a lot of, netball now these days you're allowed to contest, and some umpires allow contesting a bit more than others. So there was a bit of leaning and argy-bargy between players, and sometimes you've only got to move a bit quick, and if someone's leaning on you, they will overbalance and fall down. And that was a bit evident in the second half of the game there. We had Lucy Harkness for Imps, I think, went down about 2 or 3 times. And I think it was this argy-bargy leaning part of the game that has been allowed, because you're allowed to contest, that sort of made it look a bit like an uncoordinated game in the second half. But I think mentally, Imperials to me appeared to have had enough. And but the Suns just played really, really well. Their defence end was spot on. The Imps goalies had to work really, really hard to try and get the ball to be able to have their shots, whereas the goalies for the Suns were on target for the whole game. Centre court was brilliant in the feeding. So, you've got to give Suns a pat on the back. They fought the game out really, really well, and they are all super excited to be playing tomorrow.
Big upset there. Bad luck to the Imperials as their season comes to an end, but well done to the Suns. They've had a brilliant season. We've seen just how dominant they can be when they're up and about. They've been the highest scoring team in the league. They finished with, they didn't finish with the most points on the ladder. They finished third, but they did have the highest percentage. So we know that at their best, they can be absolutely devastating. And that takes us to a big grand final day between the Storm and the Suns at Tintinara. They've played 2 games this year. The Suns won the first encounter by 8 goals. The Storm won the more recent encounter by 3 goals. So they've played in a couple of close ones, and I reckon this one's shaping up to be pretty close again.
Yeah, look, this one definitely will be, because the second time they met, Storm were the home club, so it was played at peak. And at quarter time, the Suns were up. At half time, Storm was up. At 3/4 time, Suns were up. At the end of the game, Storm was up, and they were only won by 3 goals. And it was 3 goals in the last couple of minutes of the fourth quarter that secured the win. So, they've beaten each other once. They've had this really, really close contest that Storm came away with on their home court. It will be a very hard, fast game. Ball gets are going to be a real decider into any errors in passing and drop balls or anything like that, because everybody's going to be after that ball. That ball is going to be so contested on Saturday that it'll be almost ridiculous. A lot of height in both teams, so they equal each other out in that way. There's no advantage either goal third. as far as rebounds and things like that, intercepts coming into the feed. If the feed's not exact, the chances are it's going to get picked off. This is going to be a really brilliant game of netball, bearing in mind that Storm were Karoonda and Peak combined, and the Suns are Lameroo and Pinaroo. So there's a lot of history on that court on tomorrow, and so it is going to be brilliant. My heart is saying to me that I love the Storm. I hope they do it. I love their style of play, and I love their demeanour towards their oppositions and everything else like that. They are a real happy-go-lucky team, and I hope they do it, but I certainly would not write the Storm off. There is a lot of experience in that team, especially with the girls like Tennille Gray, who I must mention was the association's best and fairest runner-up on Monday night's count, and the other girls like Jacoba Clough and that. A lot of experience there, but the best and fairest for the association in the A grade actually went to my Palonga's centre, Stacey Smith. So they were just two of the awards from Monday night. But yeah, this game is going to be a brilliant game of netball.
Well done to those best and fairest winners, and well done to both teams who have qualified for the grand final. And you're spot on, Pat. It is going to be a thriller. The Suns haven't lost a game since they lost to the Storm in round 12. And for the Storm, it's been a while since they've lost a game as well. I think you have to go all the way back to the early part of the season. You have to go all the way back, in fact, to round 5 when they were upset by Jervois. So you've got two teams going in on big winning streaks, and this is going to be a thriller. Just while we've got a bit of time, Pat, who else is playing on grand final day tomorrow in the other grades?
Yeah, so in the A reserve, Suns are represented again. They'll be coming up against Imperials. They will be the preview game to the A-grade game, so people will be watching both of those, particularly the Suns people, and I have to say they were really switched on at the presentation on Monday night. As far as they were concerned, they were winning. The other games I'd like to mention is the Inter one, so that's the top level of our 17s. That is Storm versus Jervois. Junior 1 down to your 15s is Imperials versus My Palonga. They're both at 11:10 in the morning. And our sub-junior 1, getting down towards our 13s, are Ramblers versus Jervois. So it's good to see some of the other clubs being represented in these lower grades. Some of these games are going to be very eagerly contested for their levels. But I have to mention the B reserves. Imperials beat MyPo last week to get the right to play this week, but in that game they lost 3 players to injuries. One of them was ended up having to have a head scan for concussion, and one of the other girls did her ACL. So these players are out, and it will be these young kids from Imperials that will be stepping up and playing in that B reserve game. So that'll be a big day for those players. It's good to see so many clubs involved, and yeah, it'll be a great game. Hope the wind stays away, and I hope the sun's just nice, and it's a brilliant day for netball.
Excellent to see so many different teams will be represented on grand final day. Not so good to hear of those injuries, especially at the pointy end of the season, and we do wish those players the best. But it's all set up to be a sensational grand final day in the River Murray Netball Association. Pat, I assume you're getting out to grand final day tomorrow?
Oh, that depends on how I go with the sick puppy dog. So I'll weigh that up tomorrow when I know what's happening with her. So fingers crossed. Another
injury that we don't like hearing about. Hopefully your puppy dog heals up and you're able to get out and enjoy the netball. But everyone that is playing tomorrow, all the best, good luck. And Pat, hopefully you're out there and you can enjoy the day. And I look forward to getting you a recap of it all next Friday.
Not a problem, Dan. Speak to you then.